Welcome back to Celebrity Radio. It's Alex Belfield talking to the world's biggest stars and some of my favourite people. And we've got one for you today. A man who is iconic. He's a legend. He had a sound that nobody had created before. His song Apache has had over 5 million hits on YouTube and is regarded as the best instrumental in history. His new album, Without a Word, is available on Amazon now and other outlets too, featuring The Fall on a Hill, Cry Me a River, What a Wonderful World, Moon River Alfie, Are You Lonesome Tonight, and much, much more. And I'm delighted to say it's creator Hank Marvin joins us live on the phone now from Australia. How you doing, Hank?
Alex, I'm very well, thanks for asking, and looking forward to this conversation.
Do you know what? It must be great to be you. I think in show business, if you're credible and you've done something worthwhile, that's a good thing in itself. But to still be here all these years later is remarkable, isn't it?
Well, to still be breathing is always good, isn't it? You know what I mean? A few of us have dropped off the perch this last 10 months or so. But no, when you enjoy whatever you do in life, whatever it be, you know, in this case, things involved with the music industry, particularly making music, writing, recording, and so forth, it's always a joy to be able to continue to do that at a good level, but also as much as I want to. In my case, you know, I'm not pressured to do more than I want to do, which is good. It's pretty much left up to me to make the choice of whether to do something or not. And that is a good position to be in because it takes a lot of pressure off.
Well, I guess at this point you've nothing to prove. I mean, I know you were coming over to England to promote the album, and that didn't happen. My initial instinct is that what we talked about earlier, are you okay? That was just a logistical thing, was it?
Oh, yeah, I'm fine. No, it was all to do with tell you what happened. Unfortunately, the Prime Minister unreasonably called this general election, and it stuffed up some of the TV content that we were looking forward to being involved with. They had to shift their emphasis onto the campaign, so they couldn't accommodate, which was a pity. So most of the other stuff, radios, press, I've done a fair bit already. Well, I'm doing by phone or ISDN, and a couple of video clips, which I'll do here and they'll send over.
You talked earlier about the legends that we've lost. I mean, last year was one of the grimmest years, whether it be Victoria Wood or Terry Wogan, the year before Cilla Black. When you look around at the icons that we've lost, I guess in one way it makes you question your own mortality and look at your own success again, because we can take it all for granted and it can be taken away in a heartbeat, can't it?
Oh, without a doubt. And I think that's when you're very young, you don't really grasp that. You know, life seems never ending, and the consequences of actions seem minimal. Hence, while we, I suppose, as young men particularly do stupid things on motorbikes and cars and other crazy things. But as you get older, I think you get wiser, or you certainly should do, because you start learning from your experience, you start looking at life with a different perspective. And certainly as you get older and you have contemporaries who have fallen victim to perhaps a disease, an illness, or just, you know, their bodies are just worn out for one reason or another, or they have an accident. And so, yes, it drives home to me, certainly, or has driven home for a long time, the shortness of our span on Earth here, and that it is, as you say, it's a click of a finger, you could be gone with whatever it is, an accident or whatever. Having said that, I don't dwell on that. I mean, I pursue life as if I will live forever.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
You know, have that positive attitude. If something happens to me tomorrow, so be it. Whatever it might be, but I have the positive attitude of keep moving forward, enjoying my friends, my family, music, etc. And I think it's good to be positive and have a young approach to life, and not dwell on the fact that we are more aware of our mortality.
It's very interesting. Every year we talk to Sir Cliff, and he seems to have the same philosophy too, that he's very lucky to have lived the life he's lived, and he's very happy to be present now and move forward. And I think family does that for you in your case as well. I look at this new album, and you've got this track with your son. I mean, you've got your two loves of your life there, your family on the one hand and music on the other. Put the two together. That's alchemy, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, Ben's played on quite a few of my albums, and in fact, the previous one that we did the interview, Alex, a couple of years back, whenever it was, Yeah, he worked a lot on that album with me too. So we did most of the arrangements together on this album, and then he's done most of the acoustic guitar work on it. In fact, pretty much all of it. Not quite all, but pretty much all of it. So it was a lot of fun working together. You know, he as you can appreciate, he's in fact he's young enough to be my son, and he comes from a different musical background. Obviously, he's aware of the Shadows. He used to tour with me, and we played Shadows numbers as well as stuff from my albums. And he's aware of all that naturally. But you know, he comes from a different era, and the stuff he's listened to over the years. He has very wide tastes, and we share some of those tastes. But at the same time, because of that different musical background, he brings something different into the equation, which is good. You know, he'll come up with an idea perhaps or an approach, and I'll go, oh, that's interesting, you know, where'd that come from? And vice versa. I can do something, he goes, oh yeah, you know, it just, because you're coming from slightly different directions, but you're converging on the same point, and you're bringing these different ingredients to bear, which works really well from my standpoint. He's done his homework in terms of reading up on my history, obviously, and listening to stuff, and he's talked to a lot of fans, and he has a very good idea of that legacy, a very good understanding of it. But certainly it's not something I would in any way particularly talk about as if I needed to remind him or make him aware of it. We're just like father and son, and you know, we do things together, and that's it, and we have a laugh, you know, and if I do something it's not quite good enough, you say that's almost unacceptable.
But I mean, what you did with the Fender Stratocaster was revolutionary, and it did change music forever. I look on YouTube and the way they describe, certainly Apache, they talk about it as the greatest ever instrumental. I mean, that's a nice legacy, isn't it, to leave the greatest instrumental track in history?
Yes, well, yes, if that were true. I say that because I'm sure, Alex, that everyone has their own opinion. You know, what you get in these situations, you might get a majority, of course, who would perhaps feel that is the best instrumental, but then there would be others who might say, oh, no, it was Albatross or Tequila or, you know, or Peter Gunn or something like that. So I take all that with a bit of a pinch of salt. But having said that, it obviously gives us or gives me a very good feeling to know that enough people view it in that way, that they would even consider it as such.
How important is music at this point in your life? Do you wake up every morning and go into a room and sit and play and practice, or is it something you do when you're in the mood?
I wake up and go, oh God, I've got to get up. And it depends what hour I got to bed the night before, or if I slept well or not. Yeah. Sometimes I get up really early, other times if I haven't had a good night, I might just fall asleep again and not get up till, I don't know, 9 o'clock or something. But some mornings I'm up at 7, you know. But no, I have to say that's not the first thing that comes to my mind of going and picking up guitar. I usually think about having a shower and getting my brain together. I'm not particularly the morning person, you see, Alex. So, and then, yes, I love to, in the day, at some point, pick up a guitar and just have a fiddle on it, even if it's just trying something different out on it, you know, usually on an acoustic guitar at home. And that's always quite, it can be rewarding on the one hand, and it can be entirely frustrating on the other when you want to try to do something and it doesn't seem to work properly, you know. Either I'm technically inadequate for what I'm trying to do, which means I'll have to practice it quite a bit to get up to speed on it. So that can be frustrating sometimes. If you want the instant gratification of an idea or whatever, it could be just like a musical phrase. You know, this would be a great line to play in over this chord sequence, and so I enjoy doing that sort of thing. Yeah.
I mean, I'm very real about my career. I think I'm not bad at doing interviews, but I know I'd be rubbish at doing football, and I know I'm deeply unattractive. How do you rate yourself as a human being playing the guitar? Do you, at this point, think you've made it? Have you mastered that art, or how do you view yourself?
No, I wouldn't say so, no. I think there are some masters of the guitar in this world, some of the wonderful classical musicians, you know, the guitarists like Julian Bream, who was a wonderfully passionate player. I mean, Segovia, obviously, and others. Then there are wonderful flamenco players like Paco Pina, fabulous flamenco player. And then you've got, you know, others in the jazz field who just know their instruments so well, and they can improvise beautifully. It becomes an extension of their psyche, of their voice, and everything. I don't think I have that. Well, I know I don't have that mastery of the instrument. And I think in reality there are probably not that many pop rock guitarists who do. Some of them can be really, really very good technically, but it doesn't always mean a mastery somehow. So I wouldn't put myself in that bracket. I think I have a certain talent on the instrument, which is I can be expressive on it, and I can really sell a tune, you know.
You certainly can.
And when I'm playing some gypsy jazz, sometimes I have a way of melodically soloing, which a lot of people seem to have commented on. It seems a little bit different from what people normally do. And that in itself pleases me, but I'm certainly no master.
How much is it personality and how much is it technical brilliance? I look at show business, and there are many people who are incredibly rich who seem to have no talent, but they have a great personality. In music, I think it was the same, and certainly when we go back to the Shadows, I mean, there was such hype around you. It was so exciting. Do you think personality is the key, if anybody's listening now, to making it in show business, opposed to being brilliant, or do you have to have both?
Look, ideally, you have to have both. Talent can be developed. You know, if you have talent, that talent usually needs to be explored, needs to be cultivated to reach its full potential. And you know, that happens in every field of endeavor, I guess, whether you're an athlete or whether you're a musician or a dancer or whatever. You people can see, oh, this person moves wonderfully well, got a great feel. This guy, oh, I love the way he plays. He's got real feel for the music and feel for the guitar. So therefore, that talent can be developed. So if you have that and you've got a personality that people like, they're drawn to you in some way. It doesn't always have to be the same kind of personality. Of course, you know, you could have a personality which is the sort of teen idol type personality, you know, the girls swoon over or something like this, or you can have the sort of personality which everyone just likes, you know, and they're drawn to you, and that's good. So I would say having both is the way to go if you can. But having said that, I would agree with you. There are those who seem to have very little to offer in the way of any kind of talent, but for some reason. I think it's the world we live in today. It's quite celebrity conscious, you know. So you've got this focus on celebrity. So people are just famous for being famous and earning a lot of money in doing it. And well, I mean, that's the way it goes. But it's bizarre. I find it incredibly bizarre personally. But there you go. I
also find it a bit depressing, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, it is. It is when you see people with talent around the place who perhaps struggle to get the recognition they should have, and someone who can basically do nothing but pimp and preem around is exceedingly successful through the medium of TV usually. Yeah, very interesting world we live in these days.
I guess that's the antithesis of how you started with Cliff and the Shadows. Let's talk about, could we go down memory lane just for a bit, indulge me, because I'm so fascinated by that level of fame and popularity. I don't think it'll ever be seen again, certainly in terms of longevity. When you look at it now and you look back, how exciting is it? Because at the time, it must have been such a whirlwind, it just flew by.
Oh, yes, everything seemed to happen pretty quickly. You know, Cliff and ourselves met up in the end of September. Well, Bruce, Cliff and myself at the end of September in 1958. A week later, we were on tour for 2 weeks as part of his band, The Drifters. And we struck up a friendship on that tour, and Cliff asked us to stay with him. But and the response, Alex, on that tour to Cliff was enormous. I mean, we could see, wow, hang on a minute, this kid's really got something. They go nuts about him. And of course, very quickly, it just started moving forward. And then when we cracked it with Living Doll, which really opened the market up for Cliff in terms of not just being a rock and roller, which he was perceived as being at that point. It opened it up to the so-called mums and dads, you know, those a little bit older, maybe real mums and dads, you know, grandparents. Oh, thought he was wonderful. So you had the whole spectrum of screaming girls to older people now thinking he was good, and by extension thought that we were good because we were playing on those records and we were real musicians in their eyes. You know, we could play when we did things like that. So this was all happening in the space of, like, I don't know what, 6, 7, 8 months. And sudden #1 records, and you know, and then you start traveling around the world and seeing places we only dreamt of from geography lessons at school, and saw that fame extend. And then, of course, we had our own hits independent of Cliff, so we still toured together, obviously, as a kind of a team. But it was just amazing. And obviously, the screaming girls and everything, we're just part of it seems to be part of this lifestyle of young girls with pop stars. You know, they seem to scream at anything. You know, I don't know, break wind and they scream. You know.
Yeah, they're not screaming at anything. They're not screaming at me, Hank, if you know what I mean. You know, I think.
Yeah, but you know, come on, Alex, you're that young 70-year-old pop star.
No,
but
there is that.
I mean? So that was all part of it. You know, the crowds going into South Africa, and the crowds all the way from the airport right into the city. The city centre was thousands of people around the hotel. It was madness. I mean,
did it ever get too much? That's what I wonder, whether that can become overwhelming and sort of suffocating.
Well, through all of that period, initially it becomes a wonderfully entertaining experience, and it's almost, you can't believe that people like you this much, first of all, or like what you do. You know, that's the first thing. It's wow, they really love what we're doing. And then it becomes almost funny to see all this stuff going on. So it's quite entertaining. Obviously, that starts to put pressure on artists, whoever they might be, us, and particularly Cliff in this case, because the demands on you, apart from doing shows, becomes enormous. Interview. You know, it goes on and on and on, and you get very little time for yourself, and so that puts an added pressure when you're trying to, you know, you're traveling, you're doing live shows, you're trying to write songs, you're recording, trying to arrange the stuff for recording. So yeah, it becomes a busy life. But then look, at that time we wouldn't have had it any other way. I mean, it was the life we thought was never possible for us to have that kind of success. So we weren't going to complain about it. We just loved every minute of it, basically.
Yeah, incredible.
And I look back on it with a lot of affection for, you know, there were ups and downs, obviously fights in the band, the usual stuff with bands, but on the whole, it was a most remarkable journey.
I interviewed Cliff last at Christmas, and obviously he's had a devastating couple of years, and I think that's now seemingly been resolved. It must have broke your heart to see a guy who has lived a clean life and has worked so hard to be dragged through the coals purely by PR people, basically, who manipulated that whole situation, and to see the toll it took on his life. I mean, he made it perfectly clear in my interview, as he did in many others, that, you know, you don't sleep at night well when that stuff's going on around you, and who knows what that may have done to his health in the end. Let's hope now it's all over.
Well, look, I can't even begin to imagine what the emotional turmoil that he went through. I know that you know, we were in communication from time to time through that period, so I know it was pretty grim for him, obviously, but difficult to put ourselves in the position of someone who's going through that. We don't really know, you know, the depth of emotional devastation that's going on. But the whole thing was just absolutely appalling. I couldn't believe it when it happened. And, you know, having known Cliff since he was 17 years old and spent a great deal of time with him over the years, personal time, he's the most unsleazy person you could wish to meet. He treats everybody with respect, man, woman, young person, old person, It's the way he was brought up, and he never does he touch people inappropriately like a lot of guys do in showbiz. He's never been like that, and so even the whole idea of this to me was totally bizarre that they would even think he'd do something like this. So, and of course he's always surrounded by people anyway. I mean, he always has security people with him and personal assistant. He's never alone, really, unless he goes to the toilet. You know?
I know. I said this to him and I stand by it. There has to be a change in the law that one person making an allegation does not make you guilty and cannot ruin your life and career. And it's not just him. There's many other people who have spent millions of pounds on clearing their name when accusations were impossible. And that has to be unfair, surely.
Well, it can't. It's not what we'd really call justice, is it, Alex? It's part of it. I always hesitate to use the term justice system because, to me, it's a legal system. There's not always a great deal of justice in it. No. You know, it as from what you've just described, plus the fact that if you have a lot of money, you can get the best lawyers, which usually means you'll do better than a poor person who has a rubbish lawyer. Yeah. So that's not justice. That is legal and so forth.
And through all that, you can't buy back time. That's the biggest thing in all of this.
You cannot, and something is said about a person. Rumors, go about everybody in this business, and sadly, some people are willing to believe anything that they see in print or they hear. And we get a lot of that through the internet these days. Of course, the most bizarre. You can almost say anything about anyone these days, and anonymously, and the rumors will start, and or did you know that? This sort of stuff goes on. So it's just that. But again, that's the society we're living in with, and social media has to take a lot of blame for that, I think.
It's disgraceful that we put them through that. Anyway, let's get back to the album because that's what we're here talking about today. It's a curious life you've lived and a wonderful career, and I think the payoff is when you hear an album like this, it's so distinctive. And I think what's great about you, Hank, is the fact we switch on this CD, in my case, in the car, and from track 1 through the end, I think there's 14 on this CD, The Fall on the Hill, Crimea River, What a Wonderful World, Moon River, Alfie, and then these TV themes, which are so surprising. The sound is so iconic. Congratulations on that.
Thank you very much. With this album, you mentioned some of the tracks already, Alex. This album was, I called it Without a Word because obviously it is. It's an instrumental album. And I wanted to do some more of some of my favorite themes and tunes. The ones I knew would work instrumentally, particularly on guitar. For example, you mentioned Moon River. What a great piece of music that is. Alfie, Burt Bacharach tune, which apparently is one of, if not his most favorite composition I read. Yeah. And we've got Beatles things like Michelle, and that's a great tune, Michelle. It really is. It's got a great character to it, an atmosphere to it, quite French, interestingly enough. And so we try to make that a little more so with the addition of that subtle accordion, very French-style accordion is going on, supporting the guitar. Yeah, so I was very happy with the way things turned out. Some numbers presented a problem. America is not the easiest one to approach from West Side Story. Great piece of music, but wasn't the easiest to approach. Things like Doctor Who, I've always loved that as a theme, but how will we do it? Will it work on guitar instead of the weird oscillator sounds that were on the original BBC recordings of that? But anyway, I was pretty pleased the way everything turned out. We got a couple of lovely little things like What a Wonderful World, which is a super little tune, and we wanted to do that really simply and just keep it very intimate, which we've managed to achieve. I think you can understand, Alex, that from time to time when you do these things, you might look at different approaches and you think, oh, this would be great with an orchestra on or something like that, which it probably would be. But it also has such a wonderful charm as a tune that you can do it very, very simply. And we did it in this lovely little feel, which you can almost imagine you're sitting on a beach in Hawaii somewhere, yes, singing What a Wonderful World. In fact, the more I think about it, it's not a bad idea.
It is indeed. And what's next? Are you going to go back on the road and tour this album? Are we going to get to see you live again?
No plans for that. No plans at all. But as I've learned over the years, you never say never, So there aren't any plans to tour with this. We're just doing all the radio
Is that because you can't be bothered, or is that because the business has changed? Because we want to see you live. Why aren't you doing that?
Well, there's a lot involved with putting live shows on, as I'm sure you appreciate. You know, you have to do enough shows to make the whole thing financially worthwhile for the promoter and indeed for ourselves. And there's a lot of preparation goes on way before you hit the road in terms of putting the bands together, the approach, choosing the right kind of gigs, etc., etc. And then, of course, rehearsals. You've probably got 2.5, 3 rehearsals to make sure everything's really, working spot on with the music. Everyone knows what they're doing, not just the actual music itself, but what you're doing on stage, guitar changes, moving from here to there, because there might be some, a couple of guys have to go that way as I go this way, all this sort of stuff. You've got to work out and make sure everyone knows, otherwise you kind of bump into each other and fall off the stage. And then also there's stuff like you're working through with the sound and the lights, that comes in towards the end of rehearsal. And then you're on the road, and then so in total you might be taking several months up here of quite intensive activity. And I tell you what, being on the road, particularly doing one-nighters, is quite a demanding. A number of years ago, we had some fans on one of my tours, but 12 of them. It started off with more actually, but 12 of them. They came to something like 24 gigs or something like that.
Wow.
They took a holiday, and they're all a lot younger than I am. They'd all be a lot younger, maybe 20 years younger, and they couldn't believe it. After about 20 odd days, they were shattered. They said, "How can you do this? And we're not even working. We're just like, we're on a holiday." They found just the traveling in and out of hotels. They found it really destructive. They just weren't used to it. And we had, on that gig, we had about 74 concerts to do, so it was quite a long tour, But yeah, so no plans, and it's more to do with my personal lack of desire to want to tour at the moment. But they're all the problems that one has to consider when you think of doing a tour. I mean, I love working live, Alex. I actually love the experience of working in front of an audience. It's a marvelous feeling, because usually except on very rare occasions, we've been playing to a captive audience, an audience who they're paying money to see, in this case me. Why? Because they love what I do. So, you're on to a winner straight away, and you have a fantastic time. You're playing music they love it, and you can joke and have a laugh with them, and everyone has a great evening, including us as a band. We've had the great feeling of entertaining people, making them feel happy. They've enjoyed their night out, and we've enjoyed it. So it works for everybody. So from that point of view, I love working live. I think it's brilliant. It's just now as you get older and older, and I've done so much of it over the years, you think, do I really want to start slapping around again? Possibly not.
Well, that's a great shame, because we'd love to see you. The final question, I guess I've got to ask for the fans, which they've been asking, is will you ever get back with the Shadows and Cliff again for one final tour? Is that possible, or again, just too much work?
Look, like I said, you never say never. But again, there aren't any plans, and I'm not sure. The tour we did before, the reunion tour, Cliff and the Shadows, was such a wonderful thing to do for us on a number of levels. Alex, it was the social level was great. We enjoyed working together again. It was a great success. The live concerts, the video, the album, etc., etc. It was just the whole thing was brilliant. It was well put together, beautifully organized, and we just loved the work. But I think that worked so well, it might be a bit of an anticlimax to try to repeat it. Bearing in mind we're all 6, 7 years older than we were.
I get it, but never forget the affection and the fact we love those tunes and we love you, and just to see you recreating that will never get old. Even if you're in wheelchairs at 107, we still want to see you doing it.
Yeah, that would be funny, wouldn't it? Can you imagine doing the Shadows the Shadows wheelchair.
We have to come to your care home. How about that? Hank Marvin, it's such a joy to talk to you again. The 16th solo album is out next week, Without a Word. It's a glorious album featuring Only Fool on the Hill, Crimea River, What a Wonderful World, Moon River, Alfie, Are You Lonesome Tonight, and Doctor Who and Poirot. This is a glorious album with the iconic sound of Hank Marvin. It's such a lovely pleasure to talk to you. Thanks for your time, Hank.
Alex, it's been my pleasure. Thanks very much.